Okay, we are live. You can call the meeting.
Okay, can I call the meeting to order? Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Can I have an adoption of the February 3rd, 2022 agenda? Have a mover or any questions on it first? Chris, you move. The seconder? Nadine? All in favor, show hands. Has anyone have adoption of minutes? Does anyone have any discussion on our minutes before we ask to move that they're approved? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve them? Glenn Funston, the seconder. Curtis, all in favor, show of hands. Thank you. Topics of discussion this morning are the Metis Council training. And who's going to handle that? Jessica or Karen? Or Sydney?
Just bringing the members over now.
I was gonna say, I think Jen is. We'll just start throwing out everybody's name.
No problem.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to introduce members of the Georgian Bay Métis Council whenever you're ready.
Yes, you have my permission. Go for it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am delighted to let the Community Advisory Group know that this morning we are participating in some Métis training that will be led by, I believe you are the president of the Métis Council, though I'm never really quite sure because you and Greg are always together. But Ron LePage is here today, and we have met Ron on site at the Honey Harbour Park, and we have also met Greg as well. I don't see actually Greg on the call today, and I believe that Ron was the lead for training, so this works out just fine. So with absolute respect, Ron, I'm delighted that you're here to help us to understand what needs to be understood with where we are today as we move forward with the project that in Honey Harbour and also general understanding. So I very humbly ask if you would be willing to offer training to the Community Advisory Group and the members you can see on screen. These are all community members from Honey Harbour, as well as our mayor is here, Peter Coutier. If you just want to give a quick wave so that they know who you are, your worship. And we do have staff as well, which you will see as well. I don't really want to spend a lot of time doing the introductions at this point because I would like to, if it's possible, go through the training and then afterwards we'll be able to have some questions. So Ron, welcome to the Community Advisory Group, and please take it away.
First of all, thank you very much for the invite. I'm happy to be here, but unfortunately, I'm not the one doing the presentation. Greg Garrett is, and I see from the chat that he is here. He's not identified by name though. His the logo on his Zoom is Georgian Bay Métis Council. So if you want to invite Greg as a panelist.
Actually, he's just changed his name.
Okay. Greg is actually going to be doing the presentation. I wanted to be here to watch him present it because I will be doing it in the future, but I haven't had the opportunity yet to present this workshop. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg if you can hear, and let him take it over.
Sydney, is Greg all set up to be able to share his screen and be in this meeting?
I'm just going to give him permissions. Just 1 second.
Oh, there you are, Ron. Hello.
Hello.
And Ron, just to clarify, this was about a half an hour of training, you think?
Yes, it is. That's correct.
Right.
So Greg's here. He can share his screen whenever he's ready.
Hi, Greg.
I'm working my way through this. My computer died a couple weeks ago. I've transferred everything over to my laptop, and so I'm just looking for the file. If you can give me one moment, I'd appreciate it.
No worries. Okay, Greg, I can see it. I'm assuming everybody else thumbs up. Yes, everybody can see it.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so I'm gonna go on mute, Greg, and you are now running the show. Okay.
Okay. So this is a basic Métis 101. It's going to deal probably with a bit of governance as well, but I'll skip those points to stick to the culture aspect of it. I'm trying to shrink my window here. Yes, it's in the way. Okay. Making Aboriginal people with Metis territories of Ontario surrounds the Great Lakes and span what was known as the historic Northwest. When we look at maps and we think of Ontario and Manitoba, we don't think of the older maps of Rupert's Land, which is the indicative descriptor of the historic Northwest. Métis means a person who self-identifies as Métis, is distinct from other Aboriginal peoples, is of historic Métis Nation ancestry, and is accepted by the Métis Nation. And if there are any hands up, and I'm open to taking questions as we go, instead of scrolling back. So if there are any hands up, if somebody could flag them to me, I'll answer any questions as we go. Thanks. What is the Métis Nation? It's comprised of descendants of people born in relations between Indian women and European men. The initial offspring of these unions were of mixed ancestry. The genesis of a new Aboriginal people called the Métis resulted from the subsequent intermarriage of these mixed ancestry individuals. So this didn't happen in a point of time on a map. As more European men and First Nations women started to have offspring, they were not necessarily accepted by one side or the other and began to form their own communities, which today we know as the historic communities. Historic Métis Nation homeland refers to the territory in West Central North America. Métis or half-breeds were then known. Métis settlements emerged as an outgrowth of the fur trade, along with trading waterways and watersheds. In Ontario, these settlements were part of the larger regional communities, interconnected by the highly mobile lifestyles of the Métis, the fur trade network, seasonal rounds, extensive kinship connections, and shared collective history and identity. So we will have kin from here to Sault Ste. Marie. So the historic names of Dizome, Labatt, Trudeau, they will have kinship connections from north down to Georgia. It's basically the canoe routes. There was no highways in those days, it was waterways, and most of the settlements are on waterways. As Honey Harbour is one of them. Because of the historic assertions of our ancestors identifying themselves as Métis and demanding Métis rights, we now have an identity comprised of common kinship, language, customs, family, and trading and traditions all coming together to connect our nation, all based on our past heritage. It should be noted that this heritage has not been proven in the Eastern Province, but our heritage is clearly visible and proven from Ontario westward, and until the Eastern Province has proven and demonstrate their unique Métis history, their work remains incomplete. The Métis Nation does not attempt to be exclusive. We simply know our history, have asserted ourselves, defended ourselves in court and military, and can demonstrate through documentation our past and ongoing presence in Ontario and westward. Our rights are derived from our foundational principles, the solid foundation upon which we rose as distinct people, the rights-bearing people with historic Métis communities in the Métis Nation, is the Métis Nation. And when we talk about rights, we're talking here about Section 35 rights. And there have been several Supreme Court decisions that confirm those rights. The Métis Nation of Ontario, MNO, maintains the only recognized provincial registry of Métis citizens in the province. It's recognized by both the federal and provincial governments. Métis living in Ontario can make a citizenship application to the MNO. That's actually changed now. You can live out of province if you still connect to Ontario historic communities and apply outside of the province. Applications are reviewed by an independent registrar who authorizes citizenship when applicants meet the criteria set out in the national definition for Métis. As of January, 19,000 adult applications, over 15,000 adult applications have registered as citizens. I think right now our total citizenship list is sitting around 27,000, with this area, Penetangine, Tiny, Midland, and Tay being the concentration of the Métis in the area, with pockets in Honey Harbour and all the way up the eastern board of Georgian Bay, making it the largest Métis population in all of Ontario. Based on the latest census, the average 2.2 children per household, the MNO registry represents approximately 45,000 to 50,000 Métis. So generally, children under the age of 16 are not registered. If there's 2.2 in a household, where at least one family member is registered, then you can see where when registration of the youth is complete when they age in. And 16 is an arbitrary age. They can be registered at birth if they want, if the parents want them to be. So we do know that number has been inclined. Our council catchment itself has added over 1,000 new citizenships, verified citizens to our list since the pandemic started. The Métis Nation of Ontario is a member of the Métis National Council, with the MNC governs on the federal level, advocating for Métis people nationally. The MNC represents Métis from Ontario westward, including the Métis Nation of Ontario, the Manitoba Métis Federation, the Métis Nation of Alberta, the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, and the Métis Nation of British Columbia. The MNO's Provisional Council is elected by ballot box elections every 4 years. That was a year ago that they added. The PCMNO is mandated to support provincial governance, is affiliated with the MNC. The MNC is kind of like our federal government, with the provincial mandate being the MNO, and then the municipalities would be the chartered communities like Georgian Bay Métis Councils. The PCMNO works with and for all chartered community councils throughout the province. PCMNO takes its direction from citizens at each annual General Assembly. That's generally held in August of each year. The following documents can be referred and are available on the MNO website under Governance, Statement of Prime Purpose, Laws, Electoral Code, and just about everything that you're looking for within the governance structure, including financial policies. It's all on métisnation.org's website. The province is divided into 9 regions. Each region has a regional councillor that sits on the PCMNO. Each region has a varying number of community councils within its regional borders. So we're region 7 of those 9 regions. We have 4 community councils within our region: Owen Sound, Barrie, Georgian Bay Métis Council, and Moon River. The only recognized provincial Métis governance structure in Ontario. The Métis rights agenda through the precedent-setting Harbour versus Paoli case here heard in the Supreme Court of Canada. And it's the only rights case that has identified harvesting rights in all of Canada. It is the backbone that the other Métis provinces are following on for their rights assertion. The MNO has also negotiated an accommodation agreement with the provincial governments on Métis harvesting rights, to which that I hold a secondary title. I am the regional captain of the hunt, and I oversee all harvesting within Region 7. MNO has established bilateral and tripartite process with the federal and provincial governments. In November 2008, signed an Ontario Métis Nation Framework Agreement with the Government of Ontario. There's a short piece of the structure, governance structure of the MNO. You'll see that on the left, we have outside of the regular councils, we have 3 provincial councils, which is the Métis MNO Youth Council, MNO Veterans Council, which I'm part of that community as well. I used to actually sit on it, and the Women's Secretariat of the MNO. Governed by the MNO Annual General Assemblies, Métis citizens, Provisional Council of the MNO consists of 19 elected representatives. You can see the breakdown there. And you can see where we are in Region 7. Community councils have been established throughout the province. I believe ours was established in 1995 to sign charter agreements with the MNO, work with the MNO and other community councils to represent the rights and interests of regional rights-bearing Métis communities throughout the province. That's where we get our mandate to engage with the municipalities, such as we are today. Almost entirely volunteer operated. Well, I would say we're 100% volunteer operated with funding for offices coming from the MNO, but nothing for staffing. Regional councillors are elected to represent a group of councils and protocol regions which organize groups of councils for consultation purposes. There's a short map of, it's a little bit older, there's been some changes to it, some additions, but there's our community councils in a nutshell. MNO citizens are often applied experts in environmental sciences, forestry, mining, fisheries, energy, etc. Métis citizens are tax-paying members of our society. These key differences you often see going through social media or just word of mouth when you're in conversations. So here's some of the facts. MNO is almost entirely volunteer operated, except for our programs. We have health and wellness programs, aging at home programs, diabetes programs. We do get healthcare dollars from either the province or federal government, depending on where they're from. Councils and consultation committees are not paid to consult with proponents in the government. So First Nations, when they get an elected council and they do consultation, their councils are entirely paid as staff, same as municipal elected officials are paid. Our council is not. Councils and consultation committees are not paid to consult with proponent government. Often requires citizens to take time off work and travel long distances. Consultation committees can speak on behalf of their constituents and therefore do not have to report back to chief and council as First Nations do. We deal directly with decision makers. Through its province-wide infrastructure, MNO delivers a range of programs and services in the areas of health, labor market development, and housing. There are many, many more programs out of the Midland office alone, and they continue to grow as we negotiate funding envelopes with different levels of government or proponents. More than 140, it's actually now over 300 work in the offices, MNO offices in 26 throughout the province. The Métis Voyager newspaper is published quarterly and is distributed to over 14,000 individuals and organizations. It has not been distributed or printed quarterly through the pandemic, simply because a lot of newsprints just weren't operating during the pandemic for various reasons. The MNO has video conferencing capability with each of its community councils throughout the province. There's a larger chart of the governance structure. And Jennifer, I can send this to you in a PDF afterwards to distribute to council if they want it.
Thank you.
In 2004, the Supreme Court of Canada set out a new legal framework, the Crown's duty to consult and accommodate. This requires governments to consult Indian, Inuit, and Métis peoples and accommodate their interests when activity on traditional lands is considered. MNO, in partnership with community councils, established regional consultation protocols to facilitate effective consultation with Métis in Ontario. And you can see the link there on the Métis Nation's website. So these, like I said before, everything that we do is published on our website for people to review and familiarize themselves with if they want. So here's the regional consultation protocol agreements. The MNO has several maps. They don't always align. The governance maps, the harvesting maps, and the consultation maps can all be variations of each other. They're not exact lines. It would be nice when we do get to the self-government level and we can redraw our maps and have everything configured into one, but that's going to be some time away, I'm guessing. Based on consultation, MNO has developed a consultation framework which includes 3 phases: pre-consultation, consultation, and accommodation. Throughout these 3 phases, MNO models work to ensure all Métis citizens, elders, youth, women, and citizens living out of their traditional territory, etc., have the opportunity to be consulted through a fair, inclusive, and transparent process. So often when we're engaged with the opponent, a survey or a traditional land use study to the citizens for their input, and we'll recognize as a leader in this area throughout the Métis Nation. We do have other provinces mirroring what we've set up for consultation. This is a kind of a phase one of consultation and the steps. Phase two is funding and capacity. And phase one is funding and capacity. Step two is information exchange, and three is assessing effects on the Métis. So we deal with logging, wind and solar, any of the mining, hydroelectric, many proponents that we're dealing with on a regular basis. And then accommodations, see some pictures here, but there was a solar farm going up. There was the fence that had to go around it would have impeded the winter deer run. The simple solution was to have the contractors keep that corridor open and put the farm into two pieces of fence instead of a single one. And that's an example of what accommodation can look like. LRC branch, some of those names have changed since then, but it's the basic structure and the titles. Some of the proponents that we have relationships with. The MNO maintains a website at, it's right there, MétisNation.org, as mentioned earlier. Included on this site are recent Métis news and events, video posting, copies of relevant MNO documents, as well as historical and cultural information. And there's even an education kit that includes stuff like Métis language, Michif workbook, and other information pieces. So that are often brought into schools. And is it, yes, this is definitely an old slide that that address has changed. But you can contact them at the email addresses and phone numbers below. And that's everything. Thanks. Now, Ron and I'd be happy to take any questions that we can, if there are any.
Mr. Chair, do you want me to see if there's any questions?
I have a question. The map you showed showing the areas, and there's a white area down near Niagara Falls and another one in Eastern Ontario along the St. Lawrence. Is that white because there's no Métis there?
They're not historical communities in that sense. There are no proven rights bearings assertions in those areas. So they're there for administrative purposes. You'll see them in Peterborough's Region 6 and 8 and 9. Those are considered non-rights bearing communities. The historical narrative continues to be researched to see if there are historical rights in those areas. The other six, regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are the rights bearing communities.
Okay, because I grew up in Eastern Ontario along the St. Lawrence, and all the surveyors that surveyed Canada came from Lancaster, Williamstown, Thompson, and all those fellas. And, you know, they were intermarried. That's why I was asking, that's all. Or some of their help was intermarried. I should rephrase that.
No, I understand completely.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that was my question. Anybody else have any questions? Grant, if you could send that to Jennifer, I'd love to get a copy, and I don't know about anybody else, but if you like a copy, maybe you can ask Jennifer to send it to you.
I will definitely send it to Jennifer, and she can distribute it to everybody that attended. No problem.
It's very informative.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Can I just ask one question just so that we have a better understanding, Greg?
Sure.
I'm just wondering if you are noticing that since there are more of your children that are being found in residential school grave sites and unmarked graves, whether or not your members are feeling more comfortable coming forward and choosing to identify now that there's a bit of a open awareness to learning?
The short answer is yes. The stigma, historic stigma, I've got 6 brothers. Half of them do not have their citizenship cards. And that has a lot to do with the systemic issues going back, back into, well, the residential school system and everything else, where when they came to your door, if you were First Nations, they already knew who you were. When they came to your door to take the children, if you're Métis, a lot of the Métis hid what they were. They took the label off and they identified as the other half of their culture. So Irish, Scottish, French, whatever their ancestral connection may have been that way. Some did not, and the Métis went to residential schools as well and suffered the same as the First Nations relatives. So it is a stigma in that, unfortunately, over the generations, each set of denied their Indigenous heritage. To that, some families actually would say, hey, and my mother-in-law was like this before she passed away, and she didn't know it. Her favorite saying was the only good Indian was a dead Indian, and she was one. So there's some humor there in her last words of wisdom, as I call them. But it still is a stigma, and like I said, half my brothers they're not bothering to, or they just agree with that historic narrative.
Yes, I think, Mr. Chair, there's just one other thing that I want to mention that Trish and I have spoken to, and I'm wondering whether or not I can just indulge the advisory group for just another moment.
Sure.
When Trish and I met with Georgian Bay Métis Council, there was Greg, Ron, and other members of your council, and the very difficult question and deserved question was asked of Trish and I as to why now is the Township of Georgian Bay and the advisory group coming forward and looking to partner and be involved with the Métis Council. And it was a very difficult question and a deservedly difficult question. But I just wanted to let the advisory group know that Trish and I both responded that we don't have an answer as to why now, as a humble marker as to why not yesterday. And so what we did is we identified that we are coming very humbly into the conversation, that the community advisory group that we represent you, we're very adamant that when we were to look at naming opportunities for the Port of Honey Harbour and also the potential of building out the Honey Harbour Park, that the influence of your council, the Métis Council, was first and foremost a priority of the advisory group. So I don't know whether or not I answered the question appropriately, or if any members of this advisory group have any comments that they would like to share with Greg and Ron as to why now. But this would be a really good opportunity to speak on your own behalf as to why this is important to you, to help perhaps soften the curiosity of why now this is important to the advisory group. So if Mr. Chair, I wonder if we could just open it up, and if anybody had anything better to say than what Trish and I said with respect to how humbly we are here and how sorrowful we are and ashamed that that there are many children that are being found in unmarked graves with residential schools, that we have a very active mayor and council that wants to make this a priority, so much so that in our strategic plan, stronger Indigenous relationships with our neighbors as a priority is really what we spoke about. But I wanted to be able to make sure that there was an opportunity for anybody here to speak as well.
Anyone have any comments? Nadine, please.
I just want to say it was exactly what Jennifer said. I can't add anything different as to why, but certainly wanted to reiterate as somebody who's very proud of their own heritage time in Honey Harbour, which is a finite amount, 90 years, finite. So I'm thrilled that the historical aspect is being taken into consideration and moving forward, and the current aspect as well. So I love the representation, and and excited for it. So just my own 2 cents.
Chair, I think that it's wonderful that you're going to have some Métis on our council, on our committee. And I hope that the next council, whether they pick some of the ones that are here now, make sure that the Métis Association, it's in writing that, hey, we're looking for people to be on the community advisory group. And that you, Greg, and Paul will rally your members to put their name forward and be part of us. I've lived here 30 years now, but I thought long and hard about getting involved, because when you're up here, you have to either play or work, and it's hard to have both. So once you become a member, it gets more difficult, but it's really rewarding.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So Jennifer, are the folks that joined us today, are they part of our council now, or our committee?
Mr. Chair, that is what we are going to talk about. And Sydney, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but can Greg and Ron stay on while we speak about the report that was written for this, or do they have to return to the panel or off the panel? Or
They can stay on if the report's in relation to them. If they have any comments to make, they're welcome to stay for sure.
well, thank you, because the report that is in front of you today, Mr. Chair, are we ready to talk about that?
Definitely. That's our next on our agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
So I hope that everybody has had an opportunity to read this through you, Mr. Chair. I present to you a report that we are hoping to actually expand immediately after this meeting to be a part of the council agenda for February. So we wanted to have a discussion here about bringing in 5 members of the community advisory group from the Métis Council. And we've had lots of conversation, Greg and Ron and I and the mayor and Bill about what that would be, what that would look like. And Greg has asked whether or not we could have 5 members from the Métis Council be a part of the advisory group. And I am completely aware that that is not an even amount of members that are not identifying as Métis, but that is what Greg has decided is a reasonable amount for this. And when we invite 5 members to the community advisory group, they can be members from the Métis Council, and they can also be people that identify as Métis in Honey Harbour, and also members of the Métis Council who also resonate with the community of Honey Harbour because of lineage or family structure, and maybe they're not here right now, but they do want to be representative of the advisory group. And also present members of the community advisory group can also identify as Métis if they wish to. So that is a really interesting dynamic for this advisory group. And the advisory group would be focused on our 2 really big opportunities that are in front of us. One is the naming of the Port of Honey Harbour assets, the pavilion, the parkette, and the promenade, as well as diving deep into the work of the Honey Harbour Park, which I'm not sure if every member of the advisory group knows, but we did receive funding for that project, and that project is a go. So that's very exciting. We can't tell you who the funding is from, but if you read Brad's report, you'd be able to see. But it's very exciting. We're very happy. The project needs to be complete by March 2023, so that gives us a year. Brad has already gone forward and put out RFPs for some of the structures, and we have met with the Métis Council on site, as well as had conversations with the council on 2 different occasions about the kind of elements that should be in the park. And some of those items are the plantings that would be in the park as opposed to traditional plantings. So, pardon me if I get this wrong, but butternut trees, black walnut trees would be the types of tree plantings, as well as plantings like tobacco, sage, would be in the planter boxes around the park. And we have also heard from the Métis Council that it is very important that there is an overhang on the pavilion structure, so that when ceremonial activities happen underneath the structure, that people that want to participate will not be standing outside of the and under the elements. So those types of things have already very quickly happened because we had to get RFPs out and we had to sort out funding opportunities. But that is pretty much where we are at. When we look at building out the playground, we will be using colors that support the Métis. Is it a scarf, Greg, or is it a sash?
It's called a sash.
Sash. So the colors that you saw in the sash will be the same colors that will be in the playground structure as well. We'll be talking in the future about what type of elements need to be in that playground structure that would be representative of perhaps some heritage or Métis culture. That would be really interesting to explore. It could be anything. It could be musical components of the playground. It really could be anything. We'll explore all that together. So I present to you a report today, and I would love to be able to have discussion on it as there are resolutions attached to it that we will then immediately be able to bring forward to February to get resolved. What happens next is we then do an advertisement for members of the Métis Council to join, and it is a committee of council, so it's ultimately then council's decision who of that grouping gets chosen. Just like how you were chosen to be a member of the advisory group, you applied, and then council made a decision, and you're all here. So it would be a very similar process. And then again, it happens again in November after the election, but we just simply have to have this in place now. So we are going to move. That's why we're trying to move it through as quickly as possible so that we can get members of the Métis Council to join you by the next meeting is the goal.
Any comments? Has everyone read the document?
Ron has a question.
Ron?
It's just a point of clarification, or a question of clarification, I guess. You've referred to members, council members, and I want to clarify whether you're talking actually about elected officials on the Georgian Bay Métis Council, because we call ourselves council members. We're talking about citizens within the Georgian Bay Métis Council who live in Victoria Harbour or may have family ties to Victoria Harbour. There's got to be a distinction there between members and citizens.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the members of the Georgian Bay Métis Council will hold two positions because that was a request of your and Greg, that there would be two positions held for members that are part of the Métis Council, and then there would be three members that would be coming from the Honey Harbour community or that have identifiable lineage to the Honey Harbour community for reasons as to why they would want to be on the advisory group.
And we do have some Métis in Honey Harbour. And
There's a
we should-
significant Métis population in Honey Harbour. That's why this project has even started to begin with.
Be good to get Wilma. She hears everything at the liquor store. So we move forward. We got resolutions.
We do, but I'm going to pass this over to Sydney because this is her, and this is her strong point.
Okay, Sydney, you have the floor.
The resolutions I sent you, you should have it in, if you have those resolution package in front of you, it should be there.
have
If
it
not, I
here.
can pull it up if you'd like.
I have. Too many papers. Yeah, I have them. Had them all in one spot too. Here. You want to,
It
then
should
we
be the
have,
third resolution.
I'm sorry,
It should be the third resolution on the third page.
February 3rd. Result, I recommend the council to support the updated membership. Is that it? Okay, the
Yes.
resolution is, be it resolved that the Honey Harbor Community Advisory Group recommends to council to support the updated membership clause in the terms and reference of the Honey Harbor Community Advisory Group as staff moves forward with the Honey Harbor Park project. And that the Honey Harbor Advisory Group, Community Advisory Group recommends to council to direct staff to follow the recruitment process for committees of council for the total of 5 new members who identify as Métis with the following considerations: President of the Georgian Bay Mountain Métis Council, Vice President of the Georgian Bay Métis Council, and 3 members who identify as Métis who presently reside in the community of Honey Harbor. That's not quite what we just said, though.
No, Mr. Cindy, are we allowed, is it the,
Can we,
so is it the wish of the community advisory group that they must live in the community of Honey Harbor, or is it possible that they could be members who have lineage to the community of Honey Harbor as well? I'm open to anything. So can we discuss that for a quick sec?
Nadine, you're thinking.
No, I'm open to either. I would totally be fine if they have lineage to Honey Harbor for sure.
And want to spend the time. That's very important.
Okay, we can revise it to stay 3 members who identify as Métis who have lineage in the community of Honey Harbor.
Or live in Honey Harbor. Yeah.
Or preside.
Or reside in the community of Honey Harbor.
Yes.
Thanks, Sydney.
And now that we have that, Glenn, do you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any other questions on what we're proposing to do? Can I ask for a mover for this resolution? Nadine, second, Glenn. All in favor, please raise your hand. Yeah, everybody that's at the meeting is in favor.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just to clarify, so what happens now is that this resolution will go onto the council agenda, and we will not be able to begin the recruitment process until council ratifies it, and they will on February 14th. So you're more than welcome, advisory group members, to let anybody that you know that you think would be of interest into joining the community advisory group based on the new terms. Feel free to let them know that a recruitment process as identified by council will be happening pretty much from February 14th on, but we will not be able to start it until then, and that's really just next week, just over a week away. So just to clarify, you won't see anything this afternoon out until we get ratification from council.
And it'd be great if Ron and Grant would kind of send out an email getting people thinking about it, if that's possible. Okay, so, Chris.
Oh, Greg posed a question in the chat about whether Port Severn's included in Honey Harbour. And I don't know if that's for staff to answer or for us to answer.
I think we were specific when we looked at the community advisory group compilation prior, when we invited you to all apply, that you was Honey Harbour. Am I wrong, Sydney? Karen, help me out on that one.
I do believe that this community advisory group is specific to the community of Honey Harbour. I know it's a little difficult sometimes defining Port Severn and Honey Harbour because our boundary lines, are a little off depending on location. So I think we would consider Métis members who live in Port Severn. I don't know if Karen has any comments on that. I just know that it's hard sometimes to define where in Port Severn versus Honey Harbour location wise.
Go ahead, Karen, sorry.
I was going to say, I see Mayor Coussier's hand as well.
Sorry, Mayor.
And yes, Councillor Bochek, Ward 4 covers most of those areas.
I just think that when we talk about lineage to Honey Harbour, it should actually cover off that question.
Yeah.
I think that the way it's worded, it would encompass both communities, but generally speaking, we think of them as two separate communities, but perhaps your chair, if you indulge, Mayor Coussier, you might have further information.
Please, your worship.
I'm just going to suggest the Honey Harbour area. And the reason I say that is because a lot of, if you go back numerous generations, people did spread out a little bit, even though there is a connection to Honey Harbour. And I wouldn't want to exclude somebody just because their current address is Port Severn, though they have relatives in Honey Harbour or what have you.
Thank you. I find that, we have a new community and another new community coming in. And now that we're going to have the Métis Council and the Métis involved in this committee, we have some new community members that we should be getting involved with new ideas, and some of them are retired and they can get involved, like Hope Bay and the other new, and they bring a different perspective. So that's my input for next committee. Any other questions? So can that's resolved, Sydney? Next one. Got that done. That's it, right, Sydney?
Yep, that's it. Unless anyone has any additional resolutions they'd like to pass, I guess it would just be adjourning the meeting.
I have a question. Not to discuss at this meeting, but next meeting, I'd really like to understand, and our committee would like to understand how we ended up with the docks at the town docks financially, and what's left outstanding and those kind of things. Is that something that we could put on next new business, but put it in next meeting? Yes, Jennifer.
I would think, Mr. Chair, that would probably be possible. We are just completing the final report for the Port of Honey Harbour. We've set aside our plans for the signage campaign for the spring summer 2022. So, the answers to what's happening with the docks is probably a little bit more obvious at the next meeting. And we'll also be able to secure the naming components, because we'll have members of this.
Not at this meeting. I'm just putting it out there that we could get it done, because we're going to start another big project of $1 million. It'd be nice how we ended up with this one. And the other thing,
the funder would like to have one closed and the other opened. So we're working with that timeline as well.
and the other thing is a new business. I have a call into Adam Lee about the new Miss Midland. and they've gone out and they're looking for people to rename the Miss Midland. So maybe Jennifer, you and I can touch base and we can get our community involved with that. And I have a call with him after this meeting because he didn't say no stopping in Honey Harbour. So who knows? You're smiling, Your Worship. Is that okay? Not a good
I'm
smile?
calling it, he didn't say no is always a positive sign.
I'm a salesman.
You surprised me in saying that.
So can we have,
Oh, Greg's, Chris has a question. You were, Mr. Chair.
oh, sorry, Chris. I wasn't looking.
Sure. I mean, we went through a lot today, so I may not have absorbed everything correctly. Jennifer, I think you said something along the lines of an RFP going out for the park because of this short time frame and having to have this built by March 2023. Did I hear that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, the RFPs, yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, Chris, the RFP has already been issued and it closed and it's been awarded.
Oh, is that available? I just tried searching on the Georgian Bay website and the township website, and I couldn't find it. Is there somewhere that we can look at what was put out and read any of this information?
Karen?
I can't speak to the RFP specifically. I know we do have records of what was originally requested, and I'm sure we can get that from Brad in the operations department to circulate. But a report will be going on the February 14th council to solidify that. So partially why maybe you can't find everything, the RFPs, once they're closed, get taken down off the website. But I see Brad turning on his camera. Do you have something to add to that?
Just
Brad?
that there is a report on the January agenda that generally lays it out.
Do you want me to quickly find the link for that?
Or could we have it on next meeting's agenda for maybe someone to present it to us? Just what has happened? I'm just kind of curious. I mean, are there drawings? Are there, design? There was mention about funding from the two camps and this being a new place for gathering for the camps. On the last meeting, we talked about parking and where the parking would go if we have the buses, and that being all under consideration. And so I'm just kind of, I guess for me, I'm curious if there's somewhere that I can read about what's all been done so far, or if someone from staff could present it to all of us if the other group members or council members group members are interested in hearing where we're at. I personally would like to hear an update.
I think we all are.
Well, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with Sydney, we could talk about it quickly now under new business, couldn't we?
Yes, if you have something. Yes, no problem.
So, Mr. Chair, I hope that Brad will be able to speak to the report that was written in January, but I will let you know, just respect to the two camps, we did speak to the camps and they already have relatively established pickup and drop off locations. We learned that I believe one of them comes out of your place, Curtis, on a regular basis. So I think what we had seen in the past is probably something that has been rectified over the years, probably because of COVID and lack of parking and that kind of stuff. So they have stepped back from the project. We have dove in with the Georgian Bay Metis Council, who have given us a confirmation of $1,000 towards the project in writing. So that is that's great. So we have secured that funding. As well, we are talking with the Metis Council and have been over the last couple of months about other elements in the park that we would bring forward to this advisory group, but just early conversations, perhaps a cenotaph at the park that would highlight the members of the Metis Council that fought in wars that have not been identified on any cenotaph as of right, and circles in terms of the design. Greg, I'm missing one thing. One thing that was tricky for us to navigate would be how to support the Metis Council during the hunt. So we've had some conversations about that. the only thing that really changed in terms of what was going to be the design post RFP was the awning over top of the the overhang on the gazebo that we talked to you about, that we would be putting an application in for. That's really the only element change. Parking is still up for discussion. We know that Viking cruises are not coming to Honey Harbour in 2022, but they are coming in 2023. They published it in their brochures, and we spoke to Becky at the Biosphere about that, and the locations that are coming out of the Viking cruises in 2022 do not include Honey Harbour for this year, which gives us a little bit of time to be able to figure out where we want to put the playground, where we want to put parking, what does busing look like, and that will all come back to the advisory group, as well as a fulsome discussion about some elements that we had a hard time wrapping our head around. And so it would be good to have a discussion at the advisory group about what that looks like.
Scott,
Maybe I missed this at the last meeting, but do we know what this RFP fully entailed? Like, did it entail a playground and a arena, like skating rink and all that stuff? Did I must have maybe missed that, or what was the RFP for?
Brad?
Thank you. So what the RFP was for a pavilion and a concrete pad where the existing rink is. So it's about 30 meters by 20 meters. A little bit smaller than what's there, but it will be it's a steel structure, so it is covered. The playground is a little bit separate. We have funds in elsewhere for replacement of that playground that's there now because it has reached the end of its life. It's possible the replacement could be bigger than what's there now if there's funding remaining from this. So right now the project that's been awarded was $549,000 for the pavilion. That's a concrete pad that does not include rink boards at this time. When we spoke to people prior to issuing the RFP, they were really uncertain of how much it was going to come in at the time. Steel prices were all over the place and contractors were slammed. So they suggested we decided just to issue it without the boards, and the boards aren't a huge amount more. I think $16,000 or $26,000. So the total project budget is $667,000. We've awarded $549,000. Now the overhang, we're still getting a cost on that. There is a report that I've written for the next council meeting, but I've since found out that everything I put in there is wrong due to a misunderstanding with the contractor. So we're just getting revised pricing right now. The playground replacement is going to be a separate project that hopefully the RFP or tender will be issued in the next month or so once we have a good idea of what this is going to end up costing. And there is not any consideration of a parking lot in this project so far.
What about pickleball? Are we going to be able to use that concrete slab for pickleball?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They play, it's the same size as the one at Baxter where they play now.
Right.
So we'll be able to use it there as well. I don't think we're going to have lines painted. We'll just tape them similar to what they have at Baxter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yes, there's a big demand for pickleball.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Everybody's okay with what has gone on?
I think in
At this
fairness,
meeting?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the one element that we spoke to the Métis Council about, which I had trouble with, not because it was right or wrong, just because it kind of caught me off guard, was during the hunt, whether or not the Honey Harbour Park could be used in any type of ceremonial manner. That's all I want to say about it. So I would love to hear what the advisory group thinks about that. And I don't want my language to sway you. It's not that. It's just, it caught me off guard. And I believe that there is a lot of value and support in traditional ceremonies. And I just wanted to get feedback on that from the advisory group.
Go ahead, Grant. Greg.
I think I can add some clarity to that, Jennifer. The harvesting would be not to actually hunt in the area, but during our ceremony or our events, we may do an education around how to process an animal, how to skin a beaver or something like that. And obviously the public may have an aversion to that. So the ask was, if we wanted to do that in the park, how would the municipality feel about it? It's really a side conversation in my role as captain of the hunt, less about the committee work itself. One isn't tied to the other. They're separate conversations in that sense. I hope that helps.
Greg, as a hunter, I see some people that could take some training on skinning, and it's unbelievable what's out there. So
I do a lot with the youth with that.
yeah, that'd be wonderful. In my mind, the only thing I'd like to say, Jennifer, is that, you know, we're having a meeting now, and it would have been nice, we could have had if the worship would allow it, it would have been nice if we could have had a quick meeting and had a look at what, as a community advisory group, of what the RSP was going to look at. I think Chris is on that. I think Scott's on that. And it's just, again, we got the money, we got to spend it. And we didn't have much input, because at the last meeting, we were talking about a lot of things. And for one, I understand why you did it, but we're all available. No, I'm the only one that's not in Honey Harbor right now. So that's my, and we don't want you to defend it today.
No, I don't need to defend it, Mr. Chair, but it is this is a reoccurring theme that we hear with the advisory group. And, you know, we do take under advisement what is being talked about here, and a pavilion and was something that came forward from, you know, to repair and replace the pavilion, to have a Métis influence with the design and the culture of and the layout of the park were very positive themes, and staff have to be able to have a little level of autonomy to be able to move it forward for the grant, right? I guess that's kind of defending, but I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just.
Well, I just think as an advisory group, and now with the media is joining us, if council allows it, it would be easy to call a special meeting just to have that discussion. That's all. And then we don't feel like the third wheel. That's all. Go ahead, Scott.
Or even just an email out to the advisory committee saying, hey, there's an RFP going out. This is what it's going out for. Like, I just feel like I missed this in the last meeting, but, you know, I had no idea there was an RFP. I had no idea this was happening. I know we had discussed it. I just assumed I had missed it, but maybe not. Maybe I was at the last meeting and everything just transpired in between, which I completely understand. The township has to move like without our blessing every single time, but sort of keeping us up to date would be nice, because I did have a member of the community say to me yesterday, oh, I hear we're getting a new rink. And I'm like, I have no idea. I have no information on that. And I feel like I'm on a committee where I should have that information before other members of the community.
That's right. But I think as of today, we have to leave it. I just thought we should bring it up because it was the elephant in the room today. That's all. Before we adjourn, as chair, Greg, and Paul.
Greg and Ron, Mr. Chair. Greg and Ron. Greg and Ron.
Greg and Ron. Okay. Sorry, Jenna.
You must have a meeting.
You have to know your names. You have to buy something from me first, okay?
Anyways, no disrespect.
You don't have to buy in from me. But that's how I remember people real well. So I have nothing to sell. So we're looking forward to working with you and you being part of our committee and your input. Anybody else have anything to say for the good of Honey Harbor? Can we get a motion to adjourn? Scott. Curtis, I've already given you one, Glenn.
No problem.
All in favor? Okay. So it's nice going to have Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
It's raining here and 55 degrees.
Take care.
You
Take care.